I know that not everybody likes me for this, and that maybe I go too far, but my observation of a lot of TQM is that you're dealing with these questions of values. When I talk about public goods, how they are defined and what they are questions of values that should reflect what the country, what the people, what the citizens want. And in some areas, you can't just say, well, now have the people out there talk about it and think about what they want to do. I think of very delicate social service, family planning, job counseling for welfare, which is the case material I use in my book. I'm worried about that, and I decided, coming to this audience, that I should say it. I mean, you will probably educate me before the day is out. I'll be around. I expect of all the things I've said, this may be the one that, and that's why I wanted not only to put it in my talk, but to say it, that you're going to want to bug me about, and I want to hear your reactions. Fred?
I happened to be reviewing on the plane over here yesterday both the Winter Commission report and the National Performance Review report. I'm happy to be a part of it. And I want to bring up two things that were missing from both. One didn't have beyond the scope of the National Performance Review, but it could have been the scope of the Winter Commission. And the other could have been in both, it was in neither. The first is the problem of fragmentation of unit economy at the state and local level.
Good.
And you think of the Northeast where I'm from, and the zillions of tiny school districts and municipalities that don't have the resources, can't produce resources, do what they want, and people want to fiercely protect their borders in their own little domain, especially as the Scottsdale City manager mentioned, how regionalism is becoming more and more important. So there's that question. Fragmentation that makes it hard to get things done. And the second issue that was missed in both, that could have been in both, is there's no mention, in the National Performance Review, there's some mention of making it easier for states and localities to deal with the federal government, get the federal government off their backs, make it easier to deal with use our money and so on. But in neither report is there any mention of the problems that states create for local governments. And in my experience working at all three levels, the states are much tougher, much more micromanaging, much more interfering with their localities than the federal. Much easier to deal with the federal government than to deal with the state government. Any state I've worked in these days.
Those are two good and connected comments, and you made them to me earlier. And I appreciate, and that's why I'm here, to get comments. I'm anxious to hear the panelists. The first one about fragmentation, I couldn't agree with you more. And I actually have a sentence in this paper, which is on page 6, two sentences, that is in the 4th paragraph on that page. It says, indeed, opportunities for reform of local government structures and processes are particularly good today. In our work at the Rockefeller Institute, we are very involved in New York State in local government restructuring. There is so much concern about government and government spending today that you can do these hard things. There's a little bit of good in everything, and a little bit of good in adversity is you can do things you couldn't do in better times to make big changes. And in regions of New York State, and we are very involved on the ground on this kind of work, because we have a pretty big staff at our institute. We find new receptivity to combining functions, not so much government consolidation, which would be good too, but combining functions regionally. Waste treatment is a big one for this. Water, transportation, school feeding. In our region in Albany, the capital region, we have a big project on this, and we now have one place where all the governments buy gasoline much more cheaply through one of the governments, the if you know it, Colony, New York. There, I said it. The other point you make about state-local, I quite agree with that, and I think that one of the next things the Winter Commission may do is a report just on state-local. We're working on doing that, and we do have, I think, the support that we need to make that a report area of the Commission. Now, Dillon's law, local governments are creatures of the state. I think the state's role in deciding what local governments can do and how they tax and what their functions are is not a simple thing of saying, you know, just leave us alone. Home rule is not enough. But I think you're absolutely right that that is an area that we don't address enough so far in our work. Other comments? Gentleman here. Did somebody else? I saw? Yeah, I thought so.
Without totally agreeing with your limitation on TQM, one aspect of it, I'd like to, what you are saying with regard to, I presume, the empowerment aspect of TQM, which we call the discretion aspect. Now, you also properly condemn the idea of a whole pile of central measurements coming out of Washington. Now, I see an inconsistency, sir. If you do not think that we should have leadership from below and empowerment from below, why do you disagree with the idea of metrics from above?
Because Washington is too far away, and they don't understand anything. I lived in Washington 20 years, and there's no place in the world where people have less understanding of American government than Washington. And so what I want is, in my book, I wish you'd read it, I talk about what Mike Dukakis did, and he and I have talked about this a lot, to change the welfare system in Massachusetts. And he set goals that were really good goals, and the agency used them and performed with them in a good way. I don't think I'm a totally bad guy, but I want you to know I'm a pretty bad guy. That's why I came. So you would know that when you catch me after this, because this is supposed to be the last question, you can bug me about this, and maybe I'll get educated.
Well, I'd like to make one.
Sure. Well, you speak to this man.
I'm almost hearing you say that clearly decisions should be placed at my level, wherever level you happen to be at. And that's a little disingenuous.
You know, there was a man named John Kennedy who wrote an article in PAR. Remember it, Kennedy's Law? You remember this? And Kennedy's first law of government was that government that should decide on any function is the government you work for. His second law of government is the government that should pay for any function is any government other than the one you work for. It was a wonderful piece. But you may have me on that. I don't know.
Thank you very much, Richard. We look forward to the panel discussion in a few minutes to follow up on your comments. I have a brief announcement. Gene Harris is seeking manuscript reviewers for a special issue of the International Journal of Public Administration, for a special issue on service efforts and accomplishments reporting, including performance measurement. Sign-up sheets are at the registration desk. We will now break and see you all back here in 15 minutes. Thank you.